My conversation with Dr. Prabhat Barnwal in the last episode brought back memories when I was a master's student, thinking about what to do after I finished my studies. Those times were probably one of the most confusing and depressing periods of my life. So I thought for this episode, I want to revisit that time to reflect on my decision and ask myself again, was a PhD for me? Scholars Unbound is a bi monthly podcast or video series that showcases the voices of scholars who know no boundaries when it comes to the pursuit of knowledge. You will hear insights from their experiences as international scholars and how these influence their research, hoping to inspire future scholars to be fearless, global, and unbound. I'm your host, Dalia Simangan. I wanted to do development work for an international organization after finishing my master's. While waiting for graduation, I was applying for several jobs a day, thinking that if I applied to 100, surely one will call me back. But no one did. And soon I realized that I may have had a graduate diploma, but I didn't have the experience and practical skills needed for these jobs. It dawned on me that I'm unskilled for field or development work. So I tried again, but this time for desk jobs. I finally had a call from a well known development organization, but this call was not because I was shortlisted. The person I met took the time out of his schedule to invite me to his office and to explain to me why he couldn't offer me the job. I was somehow stunned that he showed me some of the profiles of the shortlisted candidates, and he asked me, of course, rhetorically, how can I compete with these candidates with PhDs from Ivy League universities and some years of work experience in related fields? His message was clear: I simply couldn't compete. With that realization, I was lost and defeated, and I quickly concluded that I needed a PhD to compete in the job market. A couple of months after that, I landed a job, but it wasn't the job I had in mind. It wasn't the job I thought of doing for a long time. Although I loved my job and my coworkers back then, I was really anxious to leave because I felt I needed to go overseas and do something much more related to what I studied for. Reflecting on it now, it was definitely my feeling of insecurity hiding behind a facade of unfounded arrogance. I wouldn't like myself then. So it was in that situation and mindset when I seriously started applying to PhD programs. I didn't apply to many. I think I applied to a couple in the UK and Australia, and also one in Singapore. In short, and I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I'll admit it nonetheless here, it was a decision to escape. I did escape eventually, but for a different reason. But at the most unexpected time, I received an offer with a scholarship at the Australian National University. I accepted it, but my motivation has changed then. I actually enjoy doing research and I enjoy reading and writing. I changed and my motivation has changed. I wanted to do a PhD not because I needed to compete in the job market, not anymore, but because I wanted to learn more. And so I jumped in. I remember one of my first meetings with my supervisor. She asked me, "What do you want out of your PhD?" Although deep inside, the question stumped me. I confidently answered, "I want to work for international organizations." And so we planned my research with that intention in mind, although I was unsure if my intention remained true throughout. We focused on networking and field research skills rather than publications, so I could tailor my resume with the job opportunities in international organizations. So many things happened in those almost 5 years of completing my PhD. But it was when I submitted my thesis, I thought, hey, wait a minute, I think I can do this again. Some friends even asked me, would you do it again? And I always say yes in a heartbeat. I enjoyed writing my thesis. I enjoyed those hours in front of my makeshift desk. I enjoyed those times when I was alone with my thoughts and my words. I enjoyed the process. I didn't let the uncertainty of the outcome take away the joy of the process. Only when I was waiting for the external reviews of my thesis did I start submitting to academic journals. To my surprise too, I also enjoy the process of getting reviews, responding to reviewers, and refining my manuscripts. Needless to say, I cried on my first rejection, but I celebrated hard after my first publication. Almost 5 years now after I received my degree, I still enjoy the research process. I love reading new stuff about my field and learning more about my research topics. I enjoy the process of learning. So my PhD journey started with the motivation to escape, but it ended with a yearning for learning. I guess what I want to share here is that the years that are required to do a PhD will change us in one way or another. And as for me, I get to find what I enjoy doing and learn some skills so I could continue doing what I enjoy doing. I still consider myself a student, but fortunately now with a paying job, I can never be fully learned. I'm continuously learning beyond the PhD, or perhaps even more so after the PhD. So, was a PhD for me back then? Maybe not, but it was for me now. I went for the wrong reasons, but I stayed for the right ones. The academic job market isn't encouraging for PhD holders, especially with this pandemic. But there are other opportunities outside academia. If you decide to do a PhD to get a job, don't limit yourself with what universities can offer. Research and project management skills, for example, these are highly valuable in many places: the private sector, government agencies, think tanks, international organizations, NGOs, and many others. But if you decide to do a PhD to become an academic, don't limit yourself with what you cannot do. The PhD will train you. So take advantage of every moment while you are still technically a student. Study carefully what academic positions are looking for and tailor your outputs based on those. It's not easy to transition from a PhD candidacy to a faculty position, and sometimes the transition can take longer than what we planned for. Personally speaking, despite the many shortcomings of academia, I find it fulfilling to obtain, to produce, and to share knowledge. This, I think, are the very essence of being an academic. But I also believe that we can continue obtaining, producing, and sharing knowledge even outside academia. As Prabhat said in the previous episode, if you decide to do a PhD, you have to be all in because it takes years to complete a PhD. It's a long term commitment. It affects many facets of our lives, so it's really important to think carefully. Ask around, read relevant pieces online, seek advice, join online groups that are dedicated to themes and issues relevant to academia. For example, you can join our Scholars Unbound Facebook group. I'm sure there will be members in there who are more than willing to share their experiences to help you decide on your next steps. Those seemingly endless years of doing a PhD, especially when they are challenging, can only be justified by the right reasons, by what you think are the right reasons. But if you happen to find yourself in a PhD and wanting to leave for what you think are the right reasons, you don't have to stay either. You can take a break, have a rest, or move forward toward a totally different direction. You deserve to take control and decide what you think is best for you, not what others will think of you. We all have different journeys and they are all valid. So, was a PhD for me? Yes. Is a PhD for you? Of course, but you also need to ask yourself, why do I want to do a PhD? What do I want out of a PhD? And once you have those answers, ask yourself again, am I ready to be all in this journey that is mine? Thank you for listening to this episode. Please consider leaving a comment or rating at iTunes or any of your preferred podcast hosting platforms. For details about upcoming episodes and how to support the Scholars Unbound project, visit daliasimangan.com/scholars unbound with the link in our show notes.